Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The rush to save animals.
We just have to keep hoping for the best.
And the wait to go home as wildfires force more people to flee and close one of BC's biggest highways. Also,
every time I do talk to my cousin, I honestly think it'll be the last time.
I'm scared for them.
Afghans in BC fear for their families as the Taliban once again overtakes Afghanistan and people desperately try to get out. And
waste of taxpayers' money.
BC braces for another election during the pandemic. What are voters' priorities here?
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away this week. Emergency officials say dozens of homes are believed to have been damaged by that massive wildfire in the BC interior. The White Rock Lake blaze destroyed more in its path during last night's windstorm. As Brady Strachan reports, some evacuees have been out of their homes for more than 2 weeks and don't know if they have homes to return to.
I'm here in Vernon outside the camp for the White Rock Lake fire. Some much needed rain has been falling, and that has provided some relief as the Okanagan is tinder dry and in the middle of a severe drought. But winds have flared up this fire, leading to catastrophic results.
Nobody wants to lose their home, not in this way. But by the same token, there's not a whole lot I can do about it.
Evacuees at this reception center are learning the grim news. Approximately 50 to 60 homes were damaged by the fire overnight. The homes are in an area on the west side of Okanagan Lake called Kalini Beach. Residents have been out of their homes for more than 2 weeks now.
We've lived with that suspense for a long time, 16 days, and I just have to let it rest and hope for the best. I just have to keep hoping for the best.
The fire has also forced the evacuation of hundreds of homes north of Vernon in the Armstrong area. This is the second time people there have been ordered to flee, and the stress is building.
It's twice now, and I think each time you start thinking about the stuff that you've collected. We've been married over 50 years, my wife and I. And there's just too much for us to lose.
Along with the concern about homes is the unrelenting smoke. On Monday, the smoke was so thick in Armstrong, streetlights turned on mid-afternoon. People in the region have been learning to cope.
I wear this besides the obvious reasons for wearing them. I find it helps me breathe easier, and we're doing a lot of stuff inside.
Fire officials say this rain has brought some much-needed relief to crews battling this aggressive fire, but they're concerned about people who have chosen to stay in their homes, and they're asking them again to please leave the evacuation zone. Crews say they rescued 10 people on the shores of Okanagan Lake who were fleeing the fire. Brady Strachan, CBC News in Vernon.
The merging of two separate wildfires has the Coquihalla Highway still closed between Hope and Merritt. Concerning news is the entire community of Merritt is on evacuation alert. Our Joel Ballard has more on the anxious wait for people in and out of the BC interior.
The city of Merritt is under an evacuation alert. In the community of 7,000, anxiety and fear are high.
It's scary for everyone, and I understand that scariness. I'm trying to just maintain a calm as much as we can, but we know that we are looking down the face of a fire coming at us in 3 different directions. So
on Sunday, the Coquihalla Highway was closed between Merritt and Hope. Anxious travelers drove along as flames blazed on both sides of the highway. The BC Wildfire Service says it was closed after 2 wildfires merged.
We're in incredible drought, dry conditions. So you add that plus the wind, and 2 fires very close to each other in proximity, and with the wind just picked it up, and they were really both gaining momentum.
The Coquihalla is the most direct route between BC's interior and the Lower Mainland. But with it closed, evacuees and anyone else trying to head to the south coast will have to take highways 1 or 3. Both routes travel through other wildfire zones and add hours to the commute. Mayor Brown worries that an evacuation of her city and its thousands of residents would create a logistical and traffic nightmare.
Both of those highways are just two-lane highways. They're windy, they're not the best escape.
Right now on the Coquihalla, you can get as far as the Othello Tunnel campgrounds before you reach this blockade, which forces you to turn around and head back towards the Lower Mainland. It's an issue the government says it is working on.
Emergency Management BC has been working on different scenarios that may in fact involve aircraft and if necessary to be able to move people.
As Brown prepares for a possible evacuation, she and others are asking visitors to stay away.
We don't need any more tourists in the area right now. We need hotels for our own evacuees.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Hope.
It's not just the mayor of Merritt pleading for others to stay away. BC's public safety minister has a stern warning for travelers.
Do not travel to fire-affected areas for non-essential reasons. We want to ensure that people in fire-affected communities will be able to evacuate if necessary and access the supports that they need. If you are planning to travel to those areas, it's time to change your plans.
Farnworth says crews in the interior are bracing for a few challenging days. He also says a violent encounter on a road south of Merritt in the last day led to a vehicle fire, which then prompted evacuations. Residents are urged to leave immediately if an evacuation alert turns to an order, because escape routes can be quickly cut off by fires. We'll have much more on BC's wildfire situation later in our program. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, we saw some rain here on the south coast. It was delightful. I know a lot of people were relieved. What about the rest of the province?
Yeah, that's the big question. This same cold front definitely impacting the interior. And while it was good rain for us, I'm adding up the totals, looking to see upwards of 20 millimeters when all is said and done for parts of Metro Vancouver. We are getting some of that, but it's coming with winds and lightning for the interior. Let me take you to the satellite and radar right now. Things are happening. We've got that cold front sweeping through Metro Vancouver, just feeling the showers here in North Van in the past 5 minutes. Now I'm seeing sun break through, and that's matching up with the satellite. The front is tracking eastward. The front is still moving through the interior. So we do have some rain falling. You can see in the green on the radar, Kamloops, Salmon Arm, Vernon, Armstrong seen some rain, and we have seen on and off showers since last night. But those winds sparked by this very cold front and shifting winds as well. For the most part, they've been coming in from the northwest for the day. So moving and pushing the smoke and the fire in new directions. Also note the lightning strikes. So that's the other big part of this story. We may actually see new lightning strikes start new fires as this front rolls through. It is cooler behind this system. 21 right now in YVR, and we will see cooler temperatures for the interior over the next couple of days as that front sweeps through. So Dan, I will take you through some good news long range forecast for the interior and more on how much rain we got here in Vancouver.
We'll be looking forward to that for sure, Joe. Thanks so much. The Taliban is now back in control of all of Afghanistan. The Western-backed government fell shortly after its president fled the country. But the advance of an emboldened army of insurgents began with a planned U.S. withdrawal along with its allies. The abrupt end to America's longest war comes with a steep cost to those left behind. As Carolyn Dunn reports, the American president defends his decision to bring his troops home.
Victorious, Taliban insurgents are moving around the capital with ease today, posing for photos, armed with U.S. weapons. A Taliban commander saying there's nothing to worry about. But the Taliban has a history of brutality against its own citizens, and there are signs history is repeating itself.
We are receiving chilling reports of severe restrictions on human rights throughout the country.
I have never felt it to this extent, helpless, hopeless, disappointed, poor and miserable in my life. All our 20 years achievement maybe just go in blinks of few days.
So quick because a feckless Afghan leadership did little to stop the Taliban campaign. By the time it reached the presidential palace in Kabul, it was empty. Al Jazeera broadcast live the insurgents strolling through its opulent hallways. Criticism is mounting against the United States for pulling out troops while a security and humanitarian crisis is playing out in real time.
Why has this been such a colossal failure?
America's longest war is ending in crushing defeat.
Do you regret giving the Taliban that legitimacy?
U.S. President Joe Biden returned to the White House today to address the nation.
There was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
He remains unapologetic, insisting more time on the ground wouldn't have changed a thing.
American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves.
But as seems to happen in Afghanistan, the clock has been turned back decades. Once again, the people are in need of aid and protection from a brutal regime, and the world needs to ensure Afghanistan doesn't become a global exporter of terror. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Washington.
Amid the Taliban takeover, once again, women are being pulled out of school and work while family and friends desperately search for safety. Now Afghans here in Canada are pleading with locals to hear the screams for help. The CBC's Zara Premji brings us their stories.
Bale Salam.
Each time the phone rings, Shala Gulistani wonders whether her family in Kabul will answer, whether each call will be their last.
I'm here and I'm safe and they're not. It just makes me feel really guilty. I know I shouldn't, but I do have the survivor's guilt.
Gulistani has lived in BC since 2015, but her siblings, her parents, her life are all in Afghanistan. Many Afghans in Canada are now sharing her fears.
Every time I do talk to my cousin, I honestly think it'll be the last time I speak to him.
Because this is what it's like back home now, Kabul, Afghanistan as a whole, taken over by the Taliban. Here in Canada, family members sit helpless, trying to grapple with how decades of progress towards equality for women has vanished before their eyes.
You don't know if you're gonna live, you don't know if something even more horrible than death is gonna happen to you.
As Gulistani chats with her teenage twin sisters in Kabul, they share a sickening fear.
There's a lot of rumors and videos and information about how Taliban and other provinces have been going house to house from one area to another, searching for girls over 12 years old and widows under 40 to get them married to their fighters. And that's very scary for me because my sisters are just kids right now.
The Taliban are known to just go door to door and just take single women.
Gulistani's brother is making a desperate plea for help.
We just don't know what will happen. It's just that fear of unknown that's keeping us up.
Organizers of women's rights groups fear the progress made towards equality of women has been reversed. They're now pleading with Canadians who can teach to join the group Women Leaders of Tomorrow to help provide virtual education to Afghans trapped there. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's fourth wave of COVID-19 continues to bring higher daily case counts. More than 1,400 confirmed cases were reported over the last 3 days. That's 33% higher than the previous week. Interior Health makes up about half of those cases, 734. And for the first time since early July, the number of people in hospital has gone above 100. 47 are in intensive care. And sadly, we've lost one more person to COVID-19. 1,780 people have now been killed by the virus in BC. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland was in Port Moody today to mark the start of the federal election campaign.
This is our chance, all of us, to continue moving forward toward a Canada that is fairer, greener, and more competitive.
Freeland, who's running for a re-election in Toronto, was joined by BC federal Liberal candidates. If re-elected, the Grits are promising to implement more supports for businesses and employees.
Elections have always been about shaking hands and kissing babies. Not this one. We don't know if it's safe to shake hands with a person we don't know. And it sure doesn't feel right to go trying to kiss somebody's baby.
Former Green Party leader Elizabeth May is questioning the safety of an election campaign during this pandemic. May and the Greens are calling on the government to address the current climate crises. Elizabeth May is running as the incumbent for Saanich Gulf Islands. Now, as BC grapples with surging COVID cases and wildfire devastation, many are asking why we're having a federal election now. The CBC's Christina Jung spoke to British Columbians to get a sense of how they feel heading to the polls again.
British Columbians are once again headed to the polls during the pandemic, a year after an early provincial election was called. And now there's a snap federal election. It's a move UBC political science professor Gerald Beyer says could be risky for Justin Trudeau, who triggered the move.
But certainly the Prime Minister sees this as an opportunity to get a majority and to then lock in that majority for 4 or 5 years to come. So I think circumstances of the pandemic are always unpredictable, and so it's hard to know whether this in hindsight will look like a bad choice for the government to.
He says as vaccination continues and more public health measures are lifted, Canadians should expect to see more in-person campaigning. But with daily COVID-19 cases increasing across all regions, some in Vancouver feel this is just not the right time.
It's a waste of taxpayers' money. It should be used for more better things, like the people where the wildfire is. There's a lot of people who suffered from the COVID. It's a very, very bad time.
Yeah. No, I do not think this is a good time for an election. Okay. Both COVID and it's 2 years early. It's just another $100 million of wasted money.
I think it's too soon to call an election. We're only halfway through the federal mandate now, and elections are very expensive, and we're in the midst of a pandemic, and I think that it doesn't make sense to call it at this time.
Experts say BC will be closely watched as the Liberal Party tries to gain a majority.
There's 30 plus seats in this province. The Liberals lost a number of them in the 2019 election. They want some of those back because I think they can get some of them back. And so it really will be a very contested province. And if it's anything like the 2019 election, people in the East Coast will be staying up later to find out what's happening in BC.
And with so many seats up for grabs in the House of Commons, Beyer says residents in BC can expect a number of leaders to be visiting over the next month. Christina Jung, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Oh, the parties have the next 35 days to win your support. And while where you live doesn't decide your priorities, it can influence them. Arnita Bath takes a look at the battleground in BC.
The campaigning begins while forests are burning. A very real sign that climate change is on the minds of many British Columbians, and it could sway their vote.
Every year there's been some sort of impact with fire, smoke, but I haven't seen anything this devastating.
Phil Elliott owns the Avalon Inn in Osoyoos and has lost well over $50,000 in revenue this summer from cancellations due to hazy skies. A former Conservative voter, he now sees the environment and the economy as one.
In this area, it doesn't really matter what party it is, just the one that will not sort of take me back to the 50s and 60s fossil fuels mentality.
The owner of Victoria's Splash Landscape is also looking at this election through a different lens.
We're experiencing more heat now than it seems like ever before, so that really opens your eyes.
And trying to keep this from turning to this isn't as easy as it once was.
It's definitely been dry. Trees are failing, things are drying out. We're slowly doing our best to mitigate as much as we can.
45% of British Columbians put climate change at the top of their list going into this election. But will that actually mean change at the polls?
If their absolute guiding conscience is climate change, they're indicating to a significant extent that neither of these leaders really has a significant advantage on this file.
And despite being directly affected by the environment, with farm crops destroyed in the blistering heat this summer, there's still a large part of BC holding true to its Conservative base.
We know that anecdotally, agriculture producers are really feeling the heat quite literally and feeling the effects of hotter temperatures. Will it be enough for them to sway their vote? We're not seeing it right now.
But with dire warnings like that of the recent UN report on the course of global warming, one thing is clear. Stand up right now! Delivering on climate change can no longer be an afterthought. Anita Bath, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police say a man was sent to hospital on Sunday after a stranger slashed his throat, and now they're looking for witnesses. The 46-year-old victim was attacked from behind near Quebec Street in East 10th around 3 p.m. yesterday. Bystanders called 911 and officers arrested a suspect just south of Kingsgate Mall. The victim had some stitches and was since been released from hospital. Anyone with information is asked to contact Vancouver police. Burnaby RCMP say a 17-year-old has now been arrested after another teenager was stabbed at a party on Saturday night. The Whitecaps Development Academy says the victim is one of their players and claimed the attack was racially motivated. Police say a motive has not yet been determined, but confirm a fight broke out between several people, possibly involving pepper spray and racial slurs. The victim is still in hospital in serious but stable condition. Investigators are working to find out if the suspect and the victim knew each other. No one else was seriously hurt. Police in New Westminster are asking for your help to try to find a missing person.
We're asking the public to check their yards, check their sheds, check the side of their houses. And the reason we're asking is because we're deeply concerned for his well-being. This is completely out of character for him. We're uncertain of his state of mind. And the more eyes looking for him, the better.
38-year-old Eric Cardino was last seen leaving his family home in the Queensborough area early Saturday morning. He's said to be a Filipino man, about 5 feet 10 with a medium build. He has a tattoo along his chest that extends to the top of his left hand. He was last seen wearing a dark tank top and a ball cap. Final arguments in Mung Won Joe's extradition hearing continued in BC Supreme Court today. Lawyers for the Huawei CFO argued that government lawyers failed to present adequate evidence to the court. They say the case doesn't meet the threshold for fraud and Mung ought to be freed. The hearing is expected to wrap up midweek. Canada's Justice Minister will have the final say over her extradition. After 17 months of financial struggle, the Vancouver Aquarium has officially reopened to the public. Guests are being welcomed back to a revamped marine mammal rescue center that handles up to 150 creatures a year, including seals, sea lions, and otters. A new online guest reservation system is in place to make sure COVID protocols are followed. Masks are recommended for everyone 12 and up who isn't fully vaccinated. And a reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. That free app is also where you can find other CBC programs. And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. The Conservative Party has unveiled its election campaign platform. What leader Erin O'Toole is promising Canadians, and what was left out? That's after the break. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Whales have been putting on a bit of a show for boat tours in Newfoundland. Some lucky tourists got to see the majestic creatures make a splash up close. They even got to see some lost baby puffins back to their home in Gull Island. Have a look.
Hi, my name is Joe from O'Brien's. Welcome to Go Tours today. We have Ashley Broutweiler. We got puffy blue sky, and we got 26 or 28 or 29 degrees. I can't tell. The sun is in my eyes.
Around this time of year, the puffins start fledging and they're supposed to go outward into sea. But what happens is when they're normally supposed to follow the moon, they end up following streetlights and they get stranded on land. And so what we do is we drive around the community and try and pick them up and get them so we can release them out into the water in the morning.
I've been with my dad 2 years ago on an Alaska whale watching tour and didn't see anything like we saw here today. Yeah, I just phoned my wife. She's at home in Ontario, and I said, guess where I am? And she sounded very jealous.
This has been a really awesome day for it, but off and on, probably once or twice a week we see it, but not as often as that. This has been exceptional.
We just had a great whale watch. We saw a young humpback, a juvenile, jump out of the water, tell everybody how happy he is eating the great capelin fish. So the big trick is that when you go whale watching, to be nice to the whale, treat it as if you just met a new friend today. And he'll give you a great show, have a great old time. They come here to feed on capelin, and they also come to show off to the locals and let everybody know they're happy to visit their favorite feeding buffet.
Welcome back. After the break, as we said, we would have more on the election campaign and news after that. Now, one day after the federal election was called, many are wondering how the leaders are handling one of its central issues, mandatory vaccines. As Evan Dyer explains, it's shaping up to be the first wedge issue of the campaign.
We can keep people safe. That's really important. And then,
if there were any doubt in Jagmeet Singh's mind that vaccine mandates are a controversial topic, hecklers dispelled it today.
we can set some leadership. We can ensure that all federally regulated workers and federal workers directly are vaccinated by that date, by Labor Day.
That puts Singh on the same side as the Liberals, who say one of the reasons for this election is to let voters decide that very issue.
It's important that Canadians have an opportunity to have their say, to weigh in on our plan to go forward. And we intend to ensure that the public service gets vaccinated, and that anyone on a plane or a train be fully vaccinated.
Erin O'Toole's Conservatives say forcing people to accept vaccines to keep their jobs is a step too far.
We do feel that Canadians have the right to make their own health care decisions, and we encourage people to get vaccinated, but we also have to make sure we have the tools to protect all Canadians from some people that will not be vaccinated.
The devil is always in the details, and we know that this announcement was just thrown out there with a deadline for after the elections.
The Greens are also reluctant to embrace mandates.
We know that there are those who are not able to get vaccinated for legitimate reasons. We know that there are those who are hesitant to get vaccinated.
The divisions over vaccine mandates mirror those in other countries.
These are often drawn on political positions or political lines, and so Conservatives are typically more concerned with individual rights or proffer that they are, and are concerned with things like privacy more than they would say the Liberals are.
This issue allows parties to highlight differences in their values, but it might not make a policy difference in reality. The government's chief human resources officer says public servants who refuse to be vaccinated must be given other options. So the vaccine mandate may not really be mandatory after all. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Gatineau. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole unveiled his party's full platform in Ottawa today. As expected, it's loaded with campaign promises. And as the CBC's Hannah Thibodeau is finding out, it's noteworthy for its looks and for missing one important detail.
More than 72% of eligible Canadians are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. When you count those under 12 who still can't get a vaccine, that falls to 63%. To protect school-aged children before school starts, more adults need to get vaccinated. The NDP is calling for mandatory vaccinations for federally regulated workers by Labor Day.
We want to set that deadline because kids are at risk. A lot of experts are saying if we don't do everything possible to get all adults vaccinated, it's really kids that are going to be at risk when the school year resumes.
Late last week, Ottawa announced that public servants must get vaccinated by as early as the end of September. Air, rail, and marine workers, as well as travelers, will face the same requirement by the end of October. so not as fast as the NDP would like. And the Liberals are not specific on what happens if employees say no.
Our goal is not to punish people. Our goal is to ensure that people are protected, but we will work with the unions to make sure that it's done as quickly as possible for as many people as possible, because we want to keep Canadians safe, and we know that vaccinations are the way through it.
What makes this an emerging wedge issue is the very different position of the Conservatives, who do not favor mandatory vaccination.
We do feel that Canadians have the right to make their own health care decisions, and we encourage people to get vaccinated, but we also have to make sure we have the tools to protect all Canadians from some people that will not be vaccinated. Rapid testing, masks, distancing, all the tools, but rapid testing in particular, on a daily basis can be very effective to make sure we reduce the spread.
The Bloc Québécois argues the jurisdiction over vaccinations in Quebec belongs to Quebec. Quebec is the only province so far to require vaccine passports to access non-essential services, a move to boost vaccination rates and avoid more lockdowns, and a move that will be watched closely as voters assess the various political positions on mandatory vaccinations. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's been a desperate 48 hours since a powerful earthquake hit western Haiti, killing more than 1,400 people. Many others are missing in the rubble, and as Stephen D'Souza shows us, the search for survivors could soon get a lot more complicated.
The painstaking effort to sort through the aftermath of Saturday's quake, searching for survivors, was always urgent. Now, with heavy rains coming from a tropical depression, bringing potential flooding and risk of mudslides with it, the recovery effort has become even more critical.
It also worries me because I know that my fellow citizens are sleeping outside and they might be impacted because of the rain and the possible flash floods that may occur.
The open air that had been a refuge from aftershocks is set to become a problem overnight because of Tropical Depression Grace, compounding a tragedy that's left hundreds dead, thousands without homes. Our main concern is to get tents. We need 30,000 tents in the area. We were not prepared to face this problem, this man says. But getting aid to the hardest hit region in the south, about 180 kilometers away from the capital, has been difficult. The area is controlled by gangs or limiting access.
As crazy as it may sound, we only have access through helicopters. So I'd say right now that's probably the biggest challenge.
That's left hospitals already devastated by COVID and children, also orphaned during the pandemic, to fend for themselves. Many are awaiting basic supplies like water and shelter. We're sleeping in the street. We have nowhere to sleep because our home is destroyed and no authority to help us, this man says. Today, the country's president promised a tenfold increase in efforts to help the victims, but aid groups say, given the situation, that's a challenge.
Very difficult to see, light at the end of that tunnel, honestly, because they have to negotiate with gangs.
Some help has made it through, and patients have been airlifted to safety. For the rest, they must wait and hope that help will come. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Raging wildfires continue to threaten many BC communities. After the break, we talk with one mayor whose town is pitching in to help evacuees. Stick around.
All the bombings in Europe are turning off the tourists, and a lot of them are coming to Canada, where the dollar is cheap and there's a World's Fair. Our business specialist, Der Ho Yin, reports.
This couple from North Carolina had planned to tour the Mediterranean and sail through the Grecian islands this summer. Instead, they're here, watching the sailboats off Toronto Harbor.
Well, we were afraid of visiting Europe with the terrorist threats, the bombings that they've had at the various airports, and we decided to visit Canada as a quiet, peaceful alternative.
Fears of terrorism in Europe are also keeping some Canadians in Canada this summer. Archie Wright has canceled a land tour of Europe.
There's no point in going to Europe and being scared.
Instead, he plans to tour Expo 86. Expo has been the big attraction this year for tourists, foreign and Canadian. The exhibition has just broken the 9 million visit mark, and Expo expects another 11 million will drop by before it closes in October. The low value of the Canadian dollar is providing a double-barreled bonus for our tourist industry. It's persuading a lot of Canadians to spend their money in Canada. And Americans know their money goes a lot further here, too.
Do we have some Americans? It's nice to have everyone over here. You just here for a short holiday?
Gasoline, though more expensive here than in the States, is still cheaper than it's been in years. And that's another incentive for visitors who like to tour the country by car. With all these incentives, Canada's had more than 3.5 million tourists during the first 5 months of this year. And that's the highest number ever recorded during a similar period. Tourism Canada says all provinces are reporting big increases in tourism. And visitor inquiries are up more than 50% in British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland. That's the theme of Tourism Canada's $20 million American ad campaign, promoting Canada's old world charm, the city life, as well as the traditional wilderness scenes. Some Canadian cities are also spending a fortune to entice Americans up here.
When I come to Toronto, I come to play.
This is part of Toronto's $2.2 million television campaign, running in 5 U.S. cities. And it's working.
The primary reason is the aggressive marketing that's taking place by the industry as well as the government.
Tourism officials know they have to continue promoting Canada aggressively. They know that next year there may not be fears of terrorism, there may not be a dollar worth 72 cents American, and there won't be Expo. But those are next year's fears. For this year at least, the tourism industry, which had been sluggish, is enjoying one of its best years ever. Drought, CBC News, Toronto.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight for you on CBC Vancouver News. Ranchers are rushing to save animals.
We just have to keep hoping for the best.
And many more people are waiting to go home as wildfires force more people from their properties. The Coquihalla Highway remains closed between Hope and Merritt, while all of Merritt is on evacuation alert.
Every time I do talk to my cousin, I honestly think it'll be the last time.
I'm scared for them.
Afghans here in British Columbia are fearful for their loved ones as the Taliban once again takes over Afghanistan and people desperately try to get out. People are especially scared for women and girls amid fear of another repressive crackdown on life.
Waste of taxpayers' money.
And British Columbians will be among voters who will cast a ballot twice in this election. While some are upset we're voting at all, others say the environment is top of mind as wildfires and heat sweep through BC. Back to our top story now. Much of the BC interior is still blanketed in smoke and thousands are under evacuation alert. Katie Nicholson is in West Kelowna with the latest.
Pretty thick black smoke.
From his front lawn, Craig Moffat watched fires spill over the hill.
You could see the flames when we were driving down the road and they came over the crest of the hill. So it was kind of scary, you know, first time seeing a fire that close to your house.
Moffat and his family among the hundreds who fled Sunday night as a new fire sparked up in West Kelowna. This morning, he's home again, watching a full-on aerial assault on a fire the chief says moved like a snake.
It was at times explosive. The wind drove it quickly in many directions.
And hardly the only fire on a night best described as apocalyptic. Dense smoke choked out the light, creating blood-red skies in Armstrong. Darkness fell at 4 p.m., a slew of evacuation alerts and orders from Kamloops to the Okanagan Indian Band territory not long after. Jeff Freed had to round up his cattle to get them to safety in the pitch black.
Usually we're not trying to load them in the dark, so they're a little freaked out about that.
While between Merritt and Hope, BC, two fires merged.
Holy
shutting down a major highway and escape route for evacuees. Strong gusting winds and unrelenting smoke kept aerial crews away from the northeast of the White Rock Lake fire for days. Today, news some 60 structures on this side of the Okanagan Lake destroyed, hitting evacuees hard.
Just too much for us to lose, and that's the position we're in right now. I'm hoping that we'll be all right, but I think we'll be safe.
As massive wildfires threaten communities across BC, mayors are calling on their towns and municipalities to do everything they can to help others. Merlin Blackwell is the mayor of Clearwater, just north of Kamloops. He's hoping his community will be a lifeboat, his words, for people fleeing fires. Mayor Blackwell, first of all, what do you mean by lifeboat?
Dan, a lot of the area around here in the TNRD is under evacuation order or alert. I want my town to be a safe place for people to come. Currently, the areas south of us, Barrier, McClure, Little Fort, the areas of the North Thompson Valley are under evacuation alert. There's really nowhere else for them to come due to the pressures around Kamloops and the southern half of the TNRD, Merritt, Logan Lake, and those areas that have already been affected by wildfire. So I've asked my citizens to become that lifeboat, that Gander, Newfoundland, that place that opens up for these people and their animals. There are a lot of horses, wild livestock, and things like that need to come to a safe place. And right now, we're in pretty good shape.
So that was going to be my next question. Do you have enough room, be it hotels or having people board with others, and physically the space to take in animals?
We're working on all of that. Do we know? Does anybody really at this particular point with the chaos that's going on in the interior of BC? But we're going to do our best if it comes to us.
What have you been hearing from people in your community about your call to action and to help, and perhaps any response from other communities?
So far, it's been very good, especially the people that look after horses and farm animals and pets. They're an amazingly, wonderfully organized group of human beings. And they've already stepped up and put the word out there that farms and yards and things like that will take the four-legged friends, but will also, make accommodation for the two-legged owners. So it's been heartwarming to say the least.
Now, you put this call out for your community to be a lifeboat online in a Facebook post. You also tweeted out saying, quote, "We, the mayors of TNRD, Thompson-Nicola Regional District, need more Canadian forces to help with the wildfires. Every municipality in my region except mine is on alert or order. All hands on deck includes federal help." What kind of response have you been hearing from federal officials, if anything?
We haven't heard anything. I know that there's been some attempts by the TNRD and Chair Gillis, and that conversation or that tweet came out of a conversation this morning with Robin Smith, the mayor of Logan Lake, who specifically said, "Can you help me with this?" Especially, on social media. We haven't heard a lot on that yet, but we really do need the backup of other forms of authority. The armed forces would be perfect. They come self-contained. They have their own communication systems. They have all sorts of infrastructure like generators and things like that they can bring with them. And every Canadian sees them as a point of authority. The RCMP, local volunteer fire departments, local volunteer search and rescue, they've been working for a long time in this fire. And to have that authoritative Canadian backup would be fantastic at this point.
Mayor of Clearwater, Merlin Blackwell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Farmers in Saskatchewan are sounding the alarm about the hot, dry weather. Coming up, why experts say this year has been especially bad. And at 6:43, the last 24 hours at Lac Lejeune, just south of Kamloops. A rainy day on the west coast today, thankfully, and more is on the way. Jill will be back with our provincial weather forecast after this.
A A lot of Black business owners just don't have commercial spaces. There's a lot of discrimination that we face. We also don't have a lot of space in like major department stores, major big box stores. We just don't have that shelf space. So when I created the store, I know that I was filling kind of a need for the Black community. People want to shop Black owned, but it's pretty hard to find. My name is Karen John, and I'm the CEO of Black Owned Toronto. So over here we have all of our teas. This is really cool. We have like custom chocolates, cookies and cream. So we opened the store July of this year. We have 130 vendors in the store and over 500 products, and they're all Black-owned businesses. Most of them are from Ontario, but we have a few from other provinces as well. In the store, we have a little bit of everything. We have clothing, we have fitness, books, we have things for kids, skincare, hair care, like literally whatever you can think of, we sell it in our store.
Just over a year ago, I interviewed you when Black Owned Toronto was an Instagram account. How does it feel to see that grow from an Instagram account to an entire shop so quickly?
So going from an Instagram account to an actual store in a major mall in such a short amount of time, it's been like a little over a year. It's been amazing, definitely very challenging. I've been learning a lot. I'm mainly a graphic designer. I have like no business background, so doing this and just learning along the way has been really, really cool. And again, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be in a major mall and do this for my community. We had such an amazing, like a crazy amount of sales within the first month, and the support has been just so great and so overwhelming. I hope in the future we can open up more locations, maybe in other cities. I know a lot of other cities have been reaching out saying we need something like this as well. That's definitely a major goal of mine.
Turning this idea into a reality, what kind of advice would you give to young people who might have a dream like this?
Whatever idea you have, honestly, just go for it. And I know it sounds corny and people say this all the time, but you literally never know where your ideas are going to take you. You just have to make that push and execute.
Time to check in with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe with our full provincial weather forecast. The cold front moved through, Joe. Lovely to feel and see and smell the rain today.
So good.
Are we due for any more hot spells then?
Yes, I'm not surprised you're asking, given the summer we've had. So just a quick look at the long range, and I can sort of see out with confidence, any sort of confidence, 10 days to 2 weeks. There is another warm-up coming for 1 week from now. We've got a bit of a variable forecast over the next 7 days, which is a good thing, but it looks like sort of next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we might be getting into another high pressure ridge across the province. I'll be keeping my eyes on that closely. Here's the next 7 days though, taking you through the forecast map. We've sort of got three things going on: an exiting cold front, a building high pressure for a couple days of sunshine, and then an approaching low pressure system from the north that will make for an unsettled second half of the week. So just pausing you tomorrow, 4 p.m. You can see that exiting cold front through the interior, lingering showers tomorrow morning, lingering gusty winds, but definitely clearing skies and calming winds tomorrow afternoon for the wildfire situation. And that is leaving behind some cooler temperatures, which we'll talk about. Building high pressure will sort of stabilize everyone for Tuesday and Wednesday. But then that low pressure system skirting down from the north, that will bring some rain for central and northern coastal sections tomorrow. And that will eventually get down to the south coast and the southern interior for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So very much a mixed bag week forecast. And as I mentioned earlier, I haven't seen a forecast like this since mid-June, where we've got more than a stuck system in place. Rainfall accumulation over the next 12 hours for Metro Vancouver, there's a chance we could see another 5 to 10 millimeters with some trailing pockets of showers. The main event has passed, though, and I think parts of Metro Vancouver did see downpours over 20 millimeters. So the gardens, the trees, the people, everyone loving that. Not enough to end any of our drought situation, but definitely much needed. Wanted to show you the temperatures in through the interior. So getting into the high 20s tomorrow through Soyuz as that little high pressure builds back in, but we're not hitting the 30-degree mark. And that can make a huge difference when we're talking fire risk for the new fires. So yeah, our three-part story this week, clearing skies tomorrow, getting the sunshine back for Wednesday and part of Thursday, and then unsettled for Friday, Saturday, and maybe even Sunday. Hopefully we'll squeeze some more raindrops out of that. And then Dan, high pressure builds back in this time next week. That's really putting the strain on the long range forecast. So don't hang your hat on that fourth part to the weather story, but the next three part I feel good about.
We trust you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hot, dry weather across Western Canada and other parts of it is raising concerns about the impact on crops. Experts say this year's drought is historically bad. As Dane Patterson explains, farmers in Saskatchewan are doing what they can to fight the weather.
Farmers in this province depend on rain. Water isn't always readily available, and irrigating can be expensive. That means farmers have to be smart about how they conserve water. One way is to avoid tilling, which stirs up the soil and releases moisture prematurely.
So we've been no-till on our farm since 1997, and years like this, it really pays. We had to work a little bit of our land to level out some gopher hills and that sort of thing. And those areas that we had to work the crop really struggled, actually didn't emerge in some of those spots.
This season is reminding people of the bad droughts of 30 or 40 years ago. One researcher says that this weather wouldn't be possible without climate change. And he also says data shows that this year's drought could be the worst drought we've seen in nearly a century.
The severity of what's going on this year is exceptional, and it exceeds the 1930s. In the 1930s, you could always go to northern Saskatchewan and farm there successfully, or the Peace River country, and that's not the case right now.
Pomeroy says the future looks bleak. Predictions show a mix of flooding and droughts. Farmers have to be innovative. For some, that means growing throughout the winter or reaping the benefits of areas surrounded by trees.
Those spots have helped. I mean, they stopped the wind, and they created more snowbanks last winter, which allowed us to capture some yield beside those. But they also capture a whole bunch of carbon, which helps in mitigate the causes of these extreme conditions.
McCreary says that farmers like him need to be included in climate strategies. Pomeroy says that farmers need better weather predictions, which could come from the developing Canada Water Agency. But for now, everyone will have to continue to adapt to seasons that will likely be hotter and drier than usual. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Regina.
After the break, how pesky pigeons led to the takedown of one of the most recognizable art installations in this city. Stick around.
The main reason why my mural is orange is to bring light to the reality of the residential school and the generational trauma that it does have, like through language and loss of culture, loss of arts.
Bump really likes to try to bring in artists who can highlight social causes.
This project came together through some community work that we were all doing. We were all trying to draw attention to the farmers' protests that are ongoing in India.
One great thing about this type of artwork is that it, in a way, forces people to look at it.
We came together as a collective, as part of a broader group, that's doing a lot of social justice and advocacy work. That's how we met, was the first time actually coming to paint.
I think that our mural is really special because it highlights not only the farmers' protests, but a lot of our lineage and a lot of the issues that have continued on from past generations into now. And it is really powerful, especially because there are a lot of Punjabi Sikhs in our community, a lot of people affected by the farmers' protests. And this is very unique to Calgary because there aren't many murals that represent our community.
So Bump is now going into its 5th year. We are a mural project in the Beltline and now expanding outside of the Beltline. It was founded with the intention of starting to turn some of the less desirable wall spaces in the Beltline into an open-air art gallery that's free accessible for people.
The challenge is not getting overwhelmed with the size of the wall, allowing yourself to get the creative juices flowing. Yeah.
We'll have close to 75 murals, including barriers. We have over 100 now painted barriers or walls to see. Each of them are in a public accessible spot. It's a great way to walk around, see the city, engage with local businesses. The reason to come check it out is that it's beautiful and it's easy to access.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
A very tall, highly visible piece of public art in Vancouver has been taken down, and a pigeon problem might be to blame. Our Janella Hamilton explains.
The Trans Am totem has been here in the False Creek neighborhood for the last 7 years, but now the space sits empty. It took nearly 2 days to take the 10-meter installation down, one car at a time. The popular public art piece is being relocated, but before that happens, it needs to be repaired.
Removing it to a safe storage facility where we can begin the process of cleaning it up and then restoring the interior and exterior.
Over the years, pigeons have been roosting in there, leaving behind feces and damage to the artwork. Now they're left looking for a new home. The Trans Am totem was created by local artist Marcus Bocott and his wife Helene Aspinall.
We've felt really kind of sorry for the people who live in the immediate area because there's been a bird infestation in the piece.
An infestation Bocott has witnessed firsthand.
I got up on the lift myself and I got inside to put some netting in because the birds had got into the top car. I had to wear a vapor mask and I still felt a little dizzy after getting out of there.
The installation of 5 cars, one on top of the other, sitting on cedar, was installed in 2015.
We'd always just walk by and see it, and it was our favorite thing to look at when we look outside and stuff like that. So to see it gone, it's kind of a little sad, but they're going to relocate it, so it's going to be fine. We'll see it again.
It's not only moving because of repairs. The False Creek Flats area will soon be undergoing redevelopment.
The site where the piece is now is intended to be completely reshaped in the future as the viaducts come down.
Now that the art installation is being removed, the city is considering where its next home should be and is consulting the artist about potential locations. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Thanks for joining us this evening. You can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news is right here at 11 o'clock after the National tonight with Tanya Fletcher. Have a good one.